Awesome. So I'm happy to see that we can connect. We've got a little bit more in common than I initially suspected, and that's always a good thing,
Yeah.
me at least. And this, I call this show the Vision with Execution show because I really like to ask all my guests two main questions, and those are always around the lines of how do you create a vision for yourself, and what is that vision for you in 2025, and how do you execute on it? Now, the cool thing about you, I think, is that you are used to mentoring people because you have the mentor project, and it's a 501c3 nonprofit, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. So I really want to give you a chance to talk about that because that is our shared background. I mentored at SCORE for about 3 years,
Oh, how cool.
and I don't put that anywhere on LinkedIn. I don't really put it out there publicly because I was one of the only subject matter experts in the realm of SEO, and I was just getting constantly bombarded with
Yeah.
mentoring requests, and it was just volunteer. So I paused that. I'm on like a 6 month hiatus right now.
Wow, that's so cool. And that really is a similar sort of thing, bringing experts to volunteer their time to give back to others. I think that's really cool you did that.
Well, I have seriously been blessed by God in my life, and I give all the credit to Him. And so I was just trying to give back in my small way what I've been blessed with abundantly, and that was really my motivation. And
That's so cool.
I've met a lot of mentors. There's 20,000 different mentors in SCORE. They all have different motivations for why they want to mentor, but I think it all boils down to the fact that humans like helping other humans.
It's
That's
true.
just, we're
Yeah.
wired to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so impressed that you started an organization that does that, and it's I can't say enough how cool it is that you
Oh,
took the time and effort to do that.
well, thank you. I'm excited that you feel that way because, and you obviously get it. It is that we're built to do it. It feels so good to mentor. It feels so good to give back. And so, you know, SCORE has been around forever and they've been doing it and just hasn't, people haven't been talking about the people who mentor for SCORE and what they get out of it. It's more, what do the people get out of it from the mentors? And that's my passion is talking about the perspective of the mentor.
Well, that's awesome. I really want to give you a chance to talk about that here
Great.
today, and I do try and keep my episodes to 30 minutes, but
Okay.
I'm hoping most of that will be you talking about stuff that you're doing, and I'm just kind of here to give you a platform to
Thank you. I appreciate that.
talk about these really important things. So the question I do try and ask everybody is how what is your vision for 2025? And that can be personal, it can be
Mhm.
for your organization. It doesn't matter to me. But I'd really like to know, first of all, that what is your vision?
So for me, my vision for 2025 is to let people know about mentorship. I wrote the book, The Mentorship Edge, and that's really to highlight everything I've learned through research and through founding the Mentor Project, what goes into being a great mentor and why we do it. So, my goal is really to get as many people to understand that so that people can see that giving is such an enormous, amazing gift, not just for your own personal self, but it leaves a legacy. It stops the libraries of knowledge from being burned down, and it makes us all much more connected so that we aren't living in little tiny silos all around the world.
That's awesome. My background is also in addiction recovery, aka I went through addiction recovery, and that was my first experience with mentoring other
Uh,
addicts, because
yeah,
step 12 is you try and help other people through the process.
yeah,
So that was my first taste of what it was like to help other people walk through the same process I'd gone through. And it was really fulfilling. And I did that over the course of several years. I've been sober for 8 years. And
Congratulations.
thank you. It changed my life in so many awesome ways. And I honestly think everybody should go through addiction recovery, because addictions are given this like really negative connotation. And all it really boils down to is that we've got these habits and traits that we try and use to cope with things that are, problems for us emotionally. And the opposite of addiction is connection. So being a mentor to somebody and being a mentee is one of the best ways I've ever found to actually connect with somebody about things you both care about.
Yeah.
It's a natural selection process where mentees find somebody who mentors them in something they actually care about. And they're outside of that, there's this coaching business of hiring a coach to mentor you. And I respect people that do that. I've never bothered to hire a coach. I've never asked anyone to pay me to mentor them. For me, it was just way more authentic to give of my time freely and, set up my boundaries so that they just didn't come in and walk all over what I was willing to give them. But I feel like I'm doing all the talking here.
No, that's,
I'm so
you
sorry.
just brought up an amazing point, and that's about coaching. And I'm hoping that people will be able to make that distinction. I really came at this from there's a lot of thought about coaching and mentoring being the same thing, and they're not. Mentoring comes from that innate part of us that wants to be able to be relevant, that wants to be a meaningful person in the world, that gives us that footprint that's deep, not that we just sort of hung out in the world, taking up space. And coaching is great, but it's different. Coaching you get paid for. Your goal is a little bit different. It is to maybe achieve something within something that the person is working on. You're paying someone to help you get to that goal. Mentorship is something where you're giving a piece of yourself to somebody else who wants that, and they hold on to it and then hopefully pass it on. And that's a little bit different. And I think that a lot of people will say, well, I'm a leader and a coach, and or I'm a leader and I'm a mentor. And I say, No, you're a good leader if you're doing the things that have to do with mentoring. But if you're getting paid, you're not a mentor. And that's where a lot of people will not end up getting a mentor because they'll say, "Oh, I already have a coach. I don't need a mentor." Or I already, have an advisor or a therapist, or, you could go on and on. And a mentor is somebody who's there for you. It's an emotional relationship as opposed to another one that is strictly goal oriented. That's how I have interpreted it.
Well, that's awesome. I've never heard it explained that way before. And I've been around all these terms for a really long time. And you're the first person who's been able to articulate the differences so succinctly and clearly. So that uh, in and of itself, that's probably for me one of the best things I will likely get out of doing this podcast with you today. That just the definition and helping people understand that there are differences. There's a time and a season for each one, and at different points of our life. So when you're working with your mentees, uh, do you help them with creating visions at all? Is that a part of the process for you?
It can be. Sometimes a person is looking for a mentor who can help them to see in their own minds some of their skills that they can't really highlight for themselves. And I feel like part of my job as a mentor, part of my relationship with that person is to find out what they want to get out of something. I'll find that people will say, I'm going to go for a certain job because they feel like they have to. It's the sensible thing to do. They have no interest in it, They have no desire really to do it except that it feels like the comfortable path or it's one that they've heard of. So I feel like, for me, it's to allow that person to see some of their strengths that helps with their vision. They may switch and say, I want to do something else now. Or they'll say, you know what, I absolutely want to do this, and adds a little passion to what they originally thought they wanted to do. So I do think that vision is a part of it. But sometimes a person comes in and they'll say, I have a specific idea and a specific need, and I need your specific mentorship on this sort of thing. Can you guide me in this one particular thing that I already have a vision for? And those tend to be shorter lived mentoring relationships, but um, that can exist without trying to focus on their ultimate vision.
So for you personally, I'm gonna go back to the the gist of my show, and I always ask people, "What's your vision?" You articulated yours. Now, next part of that question is, how are you planning on executing on your vision this year?
So, one of the things I've been trying to do is to speak on podcasts, to speak in speaking engagements, to get out there to talk about mentorship in the way that it was, really meant for us to engage in it, which is through generativity, which is a developmental life stage. We're built to do it just like walking and talking. And so if I feel like if I can get out in more platforms to spread this word about this, more people will get connected in ways that matter to them and ways that will sort of connect the world in a better, bigger way. That's
So,
really what I
what
hope.
is generativity?
Ooh, that's so I'm a developmental psychologist, and so I look at our developmental milestones. We're all super familiar with the physical ones, like walking, doing things like talking and those sorts of things. But we have a whole developmental trajectory. And right in midlife, we hit a stage called generativity. And that's where we're built to want to give back without expecting anything in return from someone else. So that's the difference with coaching, is that it's not a generative thing. It's a job, but you can engage in this in philanthropy, volunteering, and mentoring. And so this life stage that we should expect to enter is one that um, it's something where we want to say, I want to feel relevant, I want to feel valued, I want to feel useful, I want my footprint to be a nice deep one. It's a part of it is a legacy. um, and in this stage that we have, we're really looking and searching and seeking to make sure that we're building a community that reflects us in a way. So if you've ever watched It's a Wonderful Life, you get to see somebody who got to see his impact on his community. It's very hard for us to see that when we live within ourselves, and we need people to be able to tell us how we matter. If you've ever seen Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, the Ebenezer Scrooge, he is an example of someone that you get to see reach the stage of generativity. So he was a self-made guy. He lived in a mansion. He, had servants taking care of all of his needs. On paper, those boxes were checked and he should have been feeling great, but he was miserable and miserly with his emotions and his money. Um, and it wasn't until he started to give back that he felt joy. And that's literally how it is in real life. So you can see a person when they are, ready to stop checking the boxes in the same kind of way that's like, okay, I'm climbing the ladder. As soon as they hit that generative stage, they start to feel that joy and that excitement the same way you see with Ebenezer Scrooge.
Do you think there's a case to be made for trying to be generative and giving of your time and effort, even if you're not in that particular stage of life? Let's
Yeah.
say you're a teenager, even. Is there a benefit to
Oh,
doing those things?
they're linked. So civic engagement used to be something like when I was young, I grew up in the 80s, and we still had civic engagement as part of our high school education. And I think it was getting phased out right around the time I was graduating. But that civic engagement is what shows you that you are not just one individual in a silo, that there's a whole world outside of you. So if you have to go volunteer in a community setting, that you may not feel that connection at that moment. You might be doing it out of obligation or something else, but you get to see how people react to you. You get to see how helpful or useful you can be, even if you're not feeling it. That primes you to, when that generative stage does hit, to get you into it right away. You're ready. You know what to do. You have that vision already in your mind.
You know if there's any research around that? I'm just curious.
No, and you know what's interesting is I spoke with Lonnie Sherrod, who was the executive director for SRCD, and I said, "Hey, I really think that this is probably connected with mentorship." And he said that they haven't done any research on those two connecting it. However, if you look at those who are more engaged in civic engagement, they tend to be people who are engaged in generativity more often. So if you were to look back at people who worked on voting or worked on other things that had to do with their community, they were more likely to be generative later.
You want to know something interesting? So I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, otherwise known as Mormons. I don't know if you know much about our religion or our culture, but when the males turn 18, they go out and serve a 2-year mission that they pay for themselves, and they don't get to choose where they go. They don't get to come home. Their family doesn't get to visit them. They literally, it's 100% about serving
Yeah,
other people. And I was able to do that. My own 18-year-old son is about to go on his, and my dad served a 2-year mission. So it's something that you it's tradition in a
yeah,
lot of ways, and it's sort of expected of us, of the men, and the girls can go too, but it's really like this male dominated thing. And we've got 80,000 of these young men out at any one time all over the world. So if you were looking for a group to study,
that would be a good one.
that's a built-in group that's already doing that, and they they hit all those criteria. They're
Yeah.
literally, there's no other reason for them to be out there doing that other than the desire to serve.
You know, you mentioned that, and first of all, that's amazing. And no wonder you went into SCORE, right? And you said, "Oh, I want to continue to serve and give back." You know, the military is another place that does that. So I can't tell you how many people I have met who've served in the military and they want to continue serving. You know, once you get, it's a dose of service, you really get to see how it feels. We all have focused so long on the benefits to the mentee or the person that's receiving, and we don't spend time talking about what it feels like to be the person who's giving or serving. And the person who's serving often gets more than the person who's receiving. And that's because you have a real emotional compensation that you're getting. And those who do engage in meaningful connections, like a person who's in service, they they live longer physical lives, and they also live more fulfilled, better emotional lives as well. And that has been studied by the Harvard longitudinal study, that's a 75-year study, and Laura Carstensen studied happiness. So we should expect to get happier as we get older. And part of that is that we're engaging in the generativity and the feeling that we get from the amazing feeling we have from serving others and from giving back, being generative. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because 80,000 people are feeling that amazing feeling of service that you're talking about. And there are millions in our military and other people who are generative, and we just don't talk about them or highlight that.
Yeah, I'm actually curious now, how would one become a mentor with your organization if they wanted to be?
So you can hit the contact us button. We've had absolutely, uh, you know, it was interesting when I was starting the mentor project with a group of about 7 people. We were just trying to get a couple of mentors who said they were retiring and felt like they were going to be irrelevant and they really wanted to be able to give back. And people told me no one who was the top 1%, the people that I was looking at having mentor, would ever give up their time. They would never be able to. They're too important. They're too busy. They've got too much going on. We went from 10 to within 6 months to 60, then to 80, then to 100 within a year, and then had a waiting list. I was overwhelmed with the number of people who wanted to serve. And so it is easy. You can just click the, contact us button, and we do have a lengthy process. A person has to have a background check, have a couple of meetings with people, and fill out a long, lengthy set of questions as well. But honestly, it's pretty exciting to me that so many people do want to serve.
That's actually really cool to hear. I've experienced the same sort of thing being involved in SCORE. Seemed like every month or even every week there was a new mentor who'd signed up. The SCORE process is even more involved. There's multiple interviews. They didn't do a background check on me if I remember right, but you have to go through this extensive training. They've got these training videos and you take a test after each one. It's very much like taking a college course in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
an online college course. And that's probably one of my favorite things that I had to do to learn how to mentor because I've used those skills now on my own kids. And I'm a volunteer athletic coach. I coach basketball and cross country. And the same principles that you use in mentoring adults are the same that you would use mentoring teens
Yeah.
in sports. So I love how universal the principles of mentoring are. And once you learn how to mentor people properly and help them, when their best interest is your number one goal, then you have learned how to actually bless and serve and show love to
Yeah.
people. And that's kind of the core, I think, of being a mentor. Some
Yeah.
sometimes the last guy I had on my show, actually, he was all about understanding people through his framework. He wrote a book, and there's like 35 different ways in which we can understand people. And to me, it seems like a bit of a stretch to have all these different motivations for why people do what they do. Because honestly, my opinion is we all act either out of fear or out of love at the end of the day. It all boils down to one of those two things. And I'm curious what you think about human motivations and what it all really boils down to, like at the most basic level.
We're built to be connected with others. We're built to, like you said, love. When I talked about generativity, the stage is that we care for others without expecting anything in return. And that really is what love is about, right? There's that is simply no one would have children otherwise. If you have a little baby and it's crying, you're not like, I'm going to soothe you, but later on, you better do something for me. We care for people all the time, and we aren't expecting any award or reward. My mother-in-law's saying is, you don't get a reward or an award for loving your children. But when we get out into the world past our family, we still operate the same way. We want to have that connection with others and that feeling that we get, even with the people that are most close to us. And when we're talking, say, about mentoring, there's a lot of components that go into that. Not a lot, it's five really, but it's the generativity. You have to have somebody who wants to give back, like you did with SCORE, like I do with the Mentor Project, and in other aspects of our lives, I'm sure, are similar. But there has to be somebody who wants that, right? So if you said, hey, I'm going to go into SCORE and I'm going to say I would like to mentor somebody in accounting, and they're like, but I'm here for SEO, that's not a match. Then you're not a mentor. If I'm So there has to be a match with that. Likely also is the fact that, and this is often the differentiator between coaching and mentoring, is that if you're paid, you're not a mentor. And that's because that's an extrinsic reward for something. So if I said to you, hey, Adam, would you like to go volunteer at a soup kitchen? You might say, yeah, I get a good feeling from that. It makes me feel good when I go help others and serve. And if I said to you instead, hey, Adam, take a left at the light before you get there and just go do your volunteering at Starbucks, it has a completely different feel to it because there's the knowing that you should be extrinsically rewarded for giving out food and beverage at Starbucks. So we need that. But the other thing is that we need a meaningful connection. You have to like the person that you're meeting with. If you feel completely repulsed by the individual, or that you're completely bored, or you're not really you're like, oh, I have to meet with my mentor. It's not mentoring then. It's, that you feel bad that you don't want to say, hey, this isn't working out for me or whatever, but it's not mentoring. And we also need trust. And this is one of the biggest ones because if you're out somewhere and you think, I can't trust this person, whether it's that I think you're going to steal my idea, or I think that that person is going to think of me differently if I tell them something about myself where I'm vulnerable. Like if I said, oh no, I'm not going to tell Adam anything about my lack of computer skills and that I don't even know what SEO is, that he's going to then judge me and either not give me a raise at work or he's going to think poorly of me. That's another big deal. And then finally, we need a goal. If you were at SCORE, somebody came in with a goal and they said, I want to learn this. Likewise, if you're mentoring somebody, there needs to be a goal, and it could be a long standing, winding road of changing goals as a person reaches, goes through their journey, or it could be a one off. Like at SCORE, you probably met with people once and that was mentoring because you met a goal of theirs. So when people are thinking of mentorship, it's kind of like making a friend in a way. You know when it's a match and when it's not. You know who you're going to open up to, and you're not going to like tell all your secrets to the town gossip. These are the kinds of things that mentoring has in it that are implicit, but that most people think you need a handbook for, and you really don't. Like you don't need a handbook to be a friend to somebody. And it's similar with mentoring. It's something we're built to do. If you say I have a toxic mentor, they're not your mentor. You don't have to be an inspiring mentor. A mentor that is giving information to somebody else that's working for them, that is inspiring. You don't have to tap dance. You don't have to, do something extra. That relationship should work. And it's really very simple.
Well, this has been a beautiful learning experience for me. I love the way that you've framed mentoring, and I really hope anybody who's listening gets inspired to go try and be a mentor. You don't have to do it through a special organization like SCORE or any of
No,
the
you don't.
other places. You can just do it, and it's valuable. It's worth doing, and I'm going to be mentoring, whether officially or not, for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It's just it's that fulfilling. So Deborah, um, the show notes are going to have a link to your site where people can either find a mentor or sign up to be a mentor. And it's been a wonderful opportunity to have you on the Vision with Execution show.
It's been a delight for me to meet you, and I'm so thrilled that I get to meet an actual person who lives and breathes mentorship and knows the benefit of it. This has been really, truly exciting for me to meet you.
Awesome. Well, this has been an episode of the Vision with Execution show. My name's Adam Torkelson. Deborah Heiser, I believe that's how you say your last name,
Yeah.
um, has been my awesome guest today. And you can listen to the show on YouTube or Spotify. And I hope you subscribe for future episodes. We have really cool people like Deborah come on that are smart and intelligent in their subject matter expertise. And I hope to hear from you. Anybody who wants to comment on the show, please